Facebook.
Hmm.
I don't know why.
I don't know either.
You used to do both.
I'm so bad. I tried to watch something last night on Vimeo and tried to put it on the projector, and I was just like, then the subtitles didn't work, and
Ah,
it was terrible.
what were you trying to watch?
I'm
Anything you
judging
can talk about?
for the
Yeah.
Etreum festival. It's
I,
called The Instinct.
okay.
It's a Spanish movie.
I am not familiar. Okay. Oops. Sorry, I got the live up now, so we're good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I just found out you were a judge. That's pretty exciting, right?
yeah.
Yeah,
I've
that's
never
great.
been a judge before. No one has
Right.
ever asked me, so it's like.
That's
But
exciting.
Adrian has been really, really helpful and really promoting the movie and stuff. So
Adrian's
really,
amazing. I
yeah,
love that dude. You couldn't ask
yeah.
for a nicer guy.
No,
So
absolutely.
let's get started. Hi, everybody. I'm Jim from Horror Movies and Shit. And with me today is Mark. Mark, I don't want to butcher your last name, so please pronounce it correctly.
Schulamann.
Thank you. You are the director of a film that is screening in the Etreum Horror Festival, correct?
It has screamed last year. Adrian is keep streaming it, but it just came out on VOD in the States and in Canada.
Yep.
So it's been out since last week.
Yep, it did, and I was lucky enough to get to watch the film. So I want to talk a little bit about it.
Yeah.
So first, is horror? Are you a horror fan?
Oh yeah.
And this,
I grew up watching horror films. I grew up in my youth. It was the Fulcis, the Argentos, the Romeros, and now I'm sort of have graduated onto what's out now. But
okay,
yeah, I'm very familiar with also the quite obscure ones. So I'm not just like the mainstream horror guy.
I'm more of a mainstream horror guy. I'm not gonna lie. Although the last few years I've been getting a lot more into indie horror, so I get to see a lot more of the interesting stuff, like
Okay.
Mark. Um,
Yeah.
I personally would probably not. This would be more of a psychological horror than a straight up gore fest, in my opinion. But
Yes.
I'm interested how you came up with. You directed the film, right? So
Yes.
what was your inspiration for the way that you shot this film? Because it's shot very well.
Thank
It's
you.
very stylized. It's got a beautiful color palette. It's a gorgeous film to watch.
Um, it is a the tricky thing about Bark is basically when I got the script, I really loved it. But the first thing that pops to your head when you read it, you think like, shit, this is just set in one location and
Mhm.
it's a forest. So
Right.
there's not a lot of visual variety. You know, there's the trees surrounding the main actor and the main location, but that's about it. So the question is obviously, doesn't it get boring after watching it for 5 minutes and you always see the same thing? So um, my approach was basically to get into the mind of the main character. And I just thought like, okay, so let's imagine you wake up in a forest tied to a tree. You have no idea how you get there. I think all your senses are on high alert. They're like, you're just trying to see everything. You're in panic mode and you try to just like to find every little thing that's happening around you and maybe you don't want to miss that. So we started to shoot. So we broke down the script basically and we started to shoot the first sequences with very wide angle lenses. And also the f-stop that we used was very high. So that basically means everything's in focus from
Right.
close to back. So that was sort of like to support that mental state of the main character. Like, you don't know where you are. You try to see everything at once and there's nothing there. And the more his journey basically progresses in the film, um, longer the lenses get, and also the f-stop comes down. So basically leading to the forest kind of closing in. So you're starting to get things that fall off out of focus and it gets more and more and more until the end it's very out of focus. You basically just like I tried to make the forest more and more claustrophobic as the whole story progressed. And also at the same time, um, in respect to the, his senses are high alert. The colors in the beginning are very, more popping than they are, for example, towards the end of the film. So we are slowly muting the colors, the greens, the browns that are there, and it slowly becomes more and more muted and bleak, basically. And that was the way that I approached it with my cameraman Peter, and that's how we sort of like, laid out a visual concept to try and, give this some focus, give this some shape, and to make it, just to make it more interesting.
Yeah, I mean, especially with one location and one main actor through the whole movie, I could see where you'd be concerned that it would get visually boring. But you did a really great job in keeping it interesting for sure.
Thank you.
So I'm curious, what was the casting like? Because especially with the fact that your main actor is the focus for the majority of the film, until you start, I don't want to give anything away, but until you start introducing some more backstory. How did you go about finding the right actor to play the main character?
Well, I had worked with Michael before. We did a movie together called Pathology, and he was the bad guy in it as well. So he we had we had kept in contact ever since, and we always wanted to do a project together. And when this script came along, I just like he was the first one who popped into my mind. And
Okay.
then I sent it to him, and he liked it. And then we developed it together. So it wasn't just like he just came up to Germany to shoot it, but like we had talked like for a couple of months about the script. We had revised the dialogue and the actions here and there a little bit, so he was also very familiar with the character and the whole story, because it was like a natural progress of us finding the best possible shooting script together. So in that way, it was sort of like a no-brainer. So basically, he was set from the beginning. There was no casting for this movie.
Oh wow, that's pretty amazing though that you're able to find him. I didn't want to get into pathology too much, but I didn't know until I started doing research on you for this
Yeah.
interview that you did pathology. I love that movie.
Oh, great. It was a
I
fun movie to do.
and it was a fun concept too. I mean it
Yeah.
it has two of my favorite 80s and 90s actors in it, Alyssa Milano and
Yeah.
Milo. I can't say his last name to save my life, but
Ventimiglia.
yes. But what was that experience like? Because that was a great movie.
Yeah, that was a proper studio film. It was produced by Lakeshore, who did, amongst others, they did Million Dollar Baby, they did the
Mhm.
Underworld franchise, they did Crank and Gamer and stuff like that. So, and that was right off after they did Crank with Mark and Brian, or also known as Neville Dean Taylor, who wrote Pathology and produced it. And yeah, I got along well with them, and they really supported me, and we had a great, has a great fun shoot. It was a really, really fun experience. And even now, when we premiered Bark in LA last week on the 12th, some of the cast, like the main cast, showed up, and we had a little reunion there.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that was fun.
That is awesome. So back to Bark, because I don't want to get
Yeah.
sidetracked, but
No, you can. No worries.
with Bark, I emailed you right after I watched it. I don't know if you read it,
Hmm.
but I was
Yeah.
literally screaming at the end of that movie. It was great. It was
Yeah.
absolutely fitting, and I was like, "Holy cow, that was a great ending." But with the way that the film develops, right? I had some. I was actually really off kilter because I'm usually pretty good about figuring out mysteries inside of a movie. When your main character is trying to figure out why he's there and he sees the gentleman with the tent, um, I thought that was all in his head. I was like, he's got to be going crazy. He's got to be losing his mind, until the backstory unfolded. And I was like, oh, this is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. So when the script was written, was it all in chronological order, or did you have to shift it around a little bit to make that story flow the way that it did in the final film? Uh-oh. I think I lost you. Are you there? I don't know if it's me or him. Can you hear me? Oh, oh, he did. We lost him. So anyway, let's talk a little bit about Pathology, right? Pathology was his 2008 movie, I believe. 2008. We mentioned it starred Milo and Alyssa Milano. It was a great film. It's very interesting. It's about a group of medical students that want to pull off the perfect murder. If you haven't seen it yet, I strongly recommend it. It appears to be streaming on Prime Video and Tubi. So please go check that out while we wait for Mark to get back with us. Oh,
Hello?
welcome back. Can you hear me?
Sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't know what happened.
Not sure. Just all of a sudden
Just
you were
trying to-
frozen, and I was like, did I say something? Kidding. I'm not sure at what point you dropped off exactly, but I was asking the script, was it in chronological order, or did you shift some of that around to make the story flow better? And I feel like we lost him again.
Okay, I can hear you.
There you are. Now I can hear you.
Okay, sorry.
That's okay.
Let's hope it works now. Okay.
It happens.
Don't connect my
So-
headphones.
Okay. So I'm just curious if the script you got for Bark was in chronological order, if you had to adjust it to make the story flow the way that it did.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear
Yep.
you. Sorry.
Can you
Yeah.
hear me though?
Let's
Okay.
take these off. Okay.
No worries. So that's okay. So I was just curious if the script you got for Bark, if it was in chronological order, or did you have to do some shifting around to make the story flow?
No, it was more or less, I mean, the whole script was more or less as it was. We changed some scenes, we added little moments here and there, but like in general, it was in pretty good shape. And it was
Okay.
more or less the way you see it. I think in the editing, we changed one scene around early in the beginning, but that's about it.
What was your favorite part of filming this movie?
My favorite part, I mean, it's hard to tell. I mean, obviously it was cool to just shoot it and see that whole thing come to life, because
Yeah.
you read it so many times, and once you see the actors performing it, and we had this massive scene, like it was on the first day when AJ Buckley's character shows up, and it was a 25-page scene. So and that is not a small scene to shoot, especially on the very first day with one of the actors.
Right.
It's quite a massive thing. But it was just so fascinating just to see it all play out and to all work out. So that was one thing. And the other thing, but that's in general one of my favorite parts of making movies is editing, because
Okay.
again, it's where everything comes together, where you see what you've done, and sometimes you wish you had done things differently. But you add music, you add
sound effects, and you can really influence and massage the whole performance and take it to another level. Even you can even save some things, and that's when the movie takes shape. And I know some people might find it extremely boring, but like it's for me, it's kind of like relaxation, because it's just me and my editor sitting there, and there's no one breathing down your neck and saying, guys, we have to move on.
Right.
We're running late or something like that. It's just you on your own, and that's where you see, where you find out if what you had in mind actually works as well.
It takes a lot of patience to do editing, at least in my experience. I'm not always the most patient person, so I give you total props for being involved in the editing from start to finish. I think that's pretty amazing. I wish I had the patience to do that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm curious, when you read Bark, the script for Bark, when it was presented to you, as soon as you were done reading, did you already have a sense of what you wanted it to look like, or did that develop as you started shooting the film?
Well, I mean, when you read it and you say, I mean, it's hard to tell. It's hard to say like I want to put a particular look on it, because it's obviously it's set in a forest, and there's only so much that you can actually do look wise in a forest. But in general, as I said, like we had this visual concept of what we wanted to do, and the rest, I mean, when it comes to operating the camera and how to stage the scenes, I had a shot list where I marked moments in that scene that were important and that I needed to make sure that I got that, and that I got a close up of this and that, or a moment that I had in my mind. But apart from that, because it was such a, I mean, it was a unique film, because for, I would say, like 40 to 50%, there's only one actor in it.
Mm-hmm.
So that gives you obviously a lot of flexibility, and you can try out stuff. And it was more about trying out, finding the moments, finding the situations, and also playing it in different ways. Play one where he's excited, play one where he's really down, play one that's sort of in the middle, and then sort of like see what works best. And since we were more or less just handheld all the time, we were pretty flexible, and it was easy to say, hey, let's just do another one, or let's move over here. But it was that the cameraman and Michael was sort of like they're becoming one team. The cameraman was feeling him and his actions, and he was sometimes also very close to him, but never in a distracting way for the actor to get pulled out. It's like, what the hell are you doing with your lens right in my face? But it felt like that those two were finding a way to sort of like dance with each other, and that sort of like that made it very unique. Because otherwise, you can do standard coverage and say like, here's a wide shot, a close up, a detail, or whatever, but that wasn't really the idea. The idea was to get into Nolan's head, basically. And since we had a lot of time just with one actor, that gave us a lot of flexibility to try stuff.
That's awesome. Now, did you? Let me think how I want to phrase this so that I don't sound like a moron. When you went out looking for a location, because as we talked about, he's pretty much tied to a tree for most of his scenes. How did you figure out what tree you wanted him tied to? Like, how did you figure that out?
I know what you mean, because it sounds so easy. Yeah, it's a tree. So what? Just go there. Here's a tree. Go.
Right.
And then you think about, okay, well, it needs to have certain qualifications to be our tree, which is like one. Okay, it needs to be a spot where somebody could set up a tent. We need to have a spot. Is it possible in any way for mountain bikers to ride through there? Spoiler, sorry about that. Like it was more or less just those things. And then it was, I mean, it was a bit complicated, because our cameraman, who actually was scouting the location, because he has a vacation home in that forest, or next to that forest on that lake that you also see in the film. And he just went out basically when he had time off, and would just constantly send me photos and say, I think I've found the perfect tree. I think I found the perfect tree. And then I would go there, look at it, and say like, okay, great. And then a day later, he would say, I think I found a better one. You know, just like it came to that point until we actually really close up to until we started shooting, that we were still running around and trying to find something that sort of like looked a bit scenic and that had depth and, you know, just like, yeah, it was more like that the cameraman was like looking for something, and I eventually had to stop him and say like, no, this is the one that we're doing right now, because, you know, otherwise we would still be scouting for a tree, right?
Right, I can imagine. So I'm curious how there are a lot of moments in the film where you raise the hopes that Nolan is going to get out, and then you just sort of rip it away.
Mhm.
That had to be challenging for sure, right? Because at some point, people are just going to give up. How did you achieve being able to keep the audience hoping for him through the whole movie? Because I'll be honest, until the very end of the movie, I was rooting for him 100%.
Yeah, I mean, that's tricky because that's part in the script. And very early on, when I was discussing it with Michael, it came to a point where he was much more cynical, for example. In the
Okay.
beginning, if the first version that we worked with, and when we, you know, we had a little table read and stuff like that, he was way more cynical and more arrogant and more assholey in a way.
Yep.
And it was actually by coincidence that I gave the script to a friend of mine just to read it, just to get his thoughts. And he came back and said, like, you have to make sure that the guy stays likable.
Right.
And that was a note that I passed on to Michael, and that sort of like set up a spark in Michael's head. And he's still says, like, to this day, he's very grateful for that note, because that's for him that put it into perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And because yes, maybe you would be cynical, but it's not interesting for an audience to watch somebody who's very cynical for 90 minutes, where you think like, what a dick, you know, maybe
Right.
he deserves to be there. So we were sort of like toying with it. Obviously the script has moments where it shifts and makes him likable, and, you know, he's pleading and he's, you know, asking to, you know, for him to free him, and you feel sorry for him, because obviously it's also a situation that, you know, everybody can imagine. Yeah, I would want to get off of that tree right now.
Right.
But that was sort of like the way that we played it. We tried to play him as nice as we could, and obviously there are moments where he is a bit more cynical, but I think you feel as a viewer that he deserves to be cynical in those moments.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. I do agree with that. There was the character progression through the entire film was intense. I was curious about the for lack of a better term, the tree hugger scene.
Mhm.
That was intense, where
Yeah.
he sees all the other people strapped to the tree. I was not expecting that in this film.
Yes.
So tell me about filming that scene.
Well, that scene was like, I think it was I mean, it was in the original script, and I always liked it because it sort of like, it gave you the feeling as a viewer that, oh, there's something broader here, or there's something else happening. At the same time, you knew something was off here.
Right.
So filming that was actually pretty easy. I mean, we had Lennon, who, you know, who was the girl also tied to a tree, and we had a couple of extras from the town that we were shooting at, basically like the neighbors of Peter and his holiday home, who, you know, took some time off in the afternoon to come and join us. And then we multiplied them in different clothes for, you know, different directions that we were shooting it. Apart from that, it's sort of like a lot of it is actually stock footage that we used. All the tree dropping, chopping stuff is all stuff that we didn't shoot for real. We shot a couple of close-ups of blood and everything, but yeah, everything else is kind of real. And then it was in the script from the beginning that he wakes up and there's just this one lone tree in this kind of chopped down forest. And that was a bit of a challenge to figure out how to do that. And fortunately, I say, quote unquote, there was a heavy storm in around Hamburg just before we started shooting, And so we called around the forest departments and asking if they maybe have some areas where, some trees had been chopped down or fallen due to the storm. And yeah, we found one that was really close by, and the guys were just like about to chop the trees, the leftover trees off. And that tree that was there was just left. And
Oh, wow.
they said like, well, tell us what to do. We can do anything you want. I said, no, just leave that tree here. And that's how we shot it, basically. That was also like the very first scene that we shot, because we were a little bit running the clock because of they had to clear that forest, and we didn't know for how long we could actually find it in a state that looked really that violently chopped down.
Right.
So we had to actually shoot that, like, I think we shot it in months before we shot the rest, but that was just that scene, and then the rest we shot we shot later.
So speaking about the shooting schedule, what was the shooting schedule like on this film? How long did you guys film for?
We had 9 days to shoot.
That's it. Wow.
That's it.
That's
It
pretty
was,
amazing.
Yeah, but it was not, I mean, you could say like, okay, well, I wish I had 22 days to shoot it or something like that. But I did the schedule myself in the beginning, and I broke it down, and I felt that it could be done in that time frame. And it was also because 50%, as I said, 50% of it is just Michael on a tree, so it's not really that demanding, or it's not like, oh, we need a whole day to shoot that one scene where he just tries to free himself. So it was doable. I don't think we did any overtime.
Wow.
It never felt we had to rush something or we couldn't get what we needed. So I think it played out really well in for that particular script and project. I don't think you can probably shoot anything else that has more actors, different locations, stuff like that. That would probably be more tricky.
Yep.
But it depends on obviously it depends. Everything depends on what your script needs and what you can do. And I had worked with most of the crew already on lots of commercials, so we had a shorthand.
Okay.
So it was not really like that I had to explain now to the cameraman how I want this done, but it felt like we just went in there and just did it more or less. So that helped obviously as well.
What were some of your inspirations for this film, for directing this film? Who are some of the other directors and filmmakers that you take inspiration from?
It's hard because I couldn't find anything that's like. I have a handful of directors that I really like. First and foremost, I mean, the movie that I watched before I shot this was Once Upon a Time in the West. I'm a huge Sergio Leone fan.
Okay.
This doesn't really have a lot to do with Sergio Leone, but sort of like he's my kind of go-to guy when I want to be inspired and see, genius. Yeah, that's what we watched before. We watched. What did we watch? I watched Blue Velvet.
Okay.
But that wasn't really for inspiration. It was just, I think I just watched some films that I really liked and that had this kind of like strange tonality. But I didn't go and now see it. I mean, the movie closest to it is probably Buried, but I purposely didn't want to watch that because I didn't want to sort of like, get inspired and try to steal from it.
Sure.
I think other films like it, people say maybe a bit like Cube is a bit like it, or even the first Saw movie is a little bit like it. But I just tried to stay away from it as much as I could because I didn't want to get tainted.
That's fair. So what inspired you to go into film directing? What made you make that leap?
I think, I mean, for a lot of people in my generation, it's probably the Indiana Jones films by Steven Spielberg. I shot Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom on Super 8 with my friends when I was 13.
Oh, wow.
So I still have that. It's a 40-minute, condensed movie.
Right.
And then right after I did Raiders of the Lost Ark, also with friends. So, and that was sort of like it. I had to do everything. I was Indiana Jones. I directed it. I shot it whenever I wasn't in shot. I edited it. I did the whole sound design and everything on Super 8 with those stupid like magnetic, tracks on both sides and stuff like that. It wasn't as that easy to do.
No.
But that sort of like got me going. It was just like something like I really liked making movies. And then sort of like that's the path that I followed.
Drink or anything?
Wow, that's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. So with horror, I'm curious, what are your tastes in horror? What movies do you like, or what do you like watching? By the way, that's my mother back there asking if I want snacks. No, I'm good, Mom. Thanks.
Yeah, you should. Let's bring in some snacks.
Thanks, Mom.
Yeah. What horror movies? I think the first horror movie I ever watched was The Pit and the Pendulum with Vincent Price, the Roger Corman film. I was heavily influenced by The Fog.
Okay.
Because that was one of the first movies I had recorded on VHS. When it was on television, and I must have watched it like 30 times. Dawn of the Dead, George Romero, definitely. A lot of the Fulci zombie ones, the City of the Living Dead and the Beyond. I would say The Evil Dead. One of my favorite horror movies is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original one. I love Reanimator. I love Hellraiser. I love a lot of stuff. I love trauma stuff.
That's
Maniac,
awesome.
because it's so gritty and it just like makes you feel uncomfortable. I like Last House on the Left.
The original, right?
Yeah, which is also like it's just so sleazy, and I love this kind of grindhouse look and feel, and it's sort of like a lot of people try to copy it, but nobody can get close to it, I think.
Yeah, I think it's very difficult to replicate for sure. But I have a very similar story to yours. When I was a kid, my mother taped A Nightmare on Elm Street off of HBO, and I can't tell you how many times I watched that. That was, and still is, one of my favorite films ever.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. I just watched it the other day.
Yeah,
and I think it just gets better by time. Also, comparing it to so many newer horror films that are out there, you can just tell how original it was.
Yep, I absolutely agree. I am a huge Wes Craven fan. I like most of his films, with the exception of The Chiller. I cannot get through that movie.
Chiller and The Swamp Thing is also not just so great, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Not so great, but even like Cursed, which is not a great film objectively, I had a lot of fun watching it.
Doesn't that also have Milo Ventimiglia in it? I think so.
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so. I know Jesse Eisenberg and Christina Ricci and Judy, I can't remember her last name, is the villain. But like it, regardless of whether it's a perfect movie or not, I love it because I have fun watching it. I don't care if it's perfect.
Well, that's all that matters.
I agree. Like I just posted something earlier about how much appreciation I have for the 1998 Godzilla, and I got so much crap from some friends. I'm like, I know 100% it doesn't hold up. It's not a perfect movie, but I loved it in the day, and I still love it.
Yeah.
What are some movies that you love that may not hold up well?
Oh, good question. I mean, I think Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is not as great as I thought it was back then.
Yeah.
I watched it a little while ago, and it was like, it's a bit cringy here and there. Nevertheless, it has a special spot in my heart, obviously. But
sure.
What other movies that don't hold up? Oh man, what did I watch?
I'll give you, for instance, like I love the movie Event Horizon.
Yeah, I never got into that. I watched it at a press screening when it came out.
Oh wow!
And everybody was like, "Wow!" And I just thought, I don't know. And then I watched it again because people are still, talking about it. And I don't know. It doesn't keep my interest really. It's like,
I mean, that's fair because I know originally when I saw it, I absolutely fell in love with it. I thought it was great. It was graphic. It was insane. But then I watched it again just a couple months ago, and I'm like, well, the CGI doesn't hold up. I can see where the story's disjointed now. Some of this doesn't make sense, but I still think it's a great film. I still have fun watching it.
Yeah. I mean, I watched Reanimator the other day, but that still holds up.
Yeah. Funny story. I actually met Barbara Crampton and Jeffrey Combs at a convention. I've never seen Reanimator.
Really?
Yeah, and I even told her, I said, a friend of mine is making fun of me for getting your autograph right now because I've never seen Reanimator. She's like, well, then how do you know who I am? I said, because you were in Beyond the Gates, and I love that film.
Yeah.
And then what was the other one that she just did with Heather Graham?
Suitable Flesh.
Suitable Flesh, that's it. Another great film. And she looks like she's 30.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, I know. How does she do that?
I have no idea.
You must
Probably
have
the reagent.
Got some of that, little liquid from
exactly.
Dr. West left.
She's also one of the nicest people you ever want to meet. We chatted for about 10 minutes, and it was great.
Yeah.
Do you do horror movie conventions at all?
I haven't yet. I would, but I haven't.
You should. In my opinion, it's a fun experience. I've never had a bad experience with a celebrity at one of those things. So
I had a fun experience. That was back in 1993, and I went to a horror festival here in Germany.
Mm-hmm.
And that movie really rocked, and it was Brain Dead by Peter
I love
Jackson.
that movie.
So, and I walked out of the theater, and everybody was like pumped. It's like, whoa, this is the bloodiest and goriest movie I've ever seen, and so much fun, stuff like that. And there was Peter Jackson standing in the corner, like super nervous, and I walked just up to him and said, hey man, great movie. He's like, oh, you think, and I talked to him for 20 minutes.
That's awesome.
He was just Peter Jackson who made Brain Dead. He wasn't Peter Jackson who made, Lord of the Rings or whatever. And
right.
He was just like, it was a really fun and really nice guy.
That's how I felt. So funny story here in the States, it's called Dead Alive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but
I know.
It was sort of a test whenever I met somebody new. If we were going to be friends, you have to be able to sit through this movie. So I would put it on every time they came over for drinks or dinner.
Yeah.
Just to see if you can get through this movie, we're okay.
It's so good. Huh?
It is.
And it's seen it in a long time because I keep hearing about they're doing a 4K restoration on it or something. So I'm just holding off and waiting to see that. But
yeah, I'll be buying that for sure. 100%. But
great.
I was going to go somewhere else. Oh, so you were talking about what a great experience that was. I had a similar experience with Sean S. Cunningham at a convention where he just sat and talked to us for 25 minutes about Friday the 13th. And it was amazing. Yeah. He wasn't asking for us to get an autograph or pictures. He wanted to have a conversation about the film itself. Yeah. It was great. And I think a lot of times we think of celebrities or directors of some of our favorite movies. We forget they're just normal people.
Yeah, exactly.
I've been lucky enough to meet some really great filmmakers through this podcast, yourself included. And it's amazing to me how, you have the same fears. Everybody, gets imposter syndrome. Everybody worries about whether people are going to like their work. So it's really great to be able to have genuine conversations with people so that you can understand the people behind the work, right? We already know we love the visual style, but now everybody's going to get to know Mark and know that they're going to want to see the rest of his work because he's a genuinely nice guy.
Hopefully, yeah.
So what else do you have coming up? What's in the pipeline for you after Bark?
There's 3 different projects, different kind of one is a psychological thriller with a supernatural element that's set in present times. Then there's one that's sort of like a Sleepy Hollow thing with a ghostwriter in a northern German town that's based on a very famous German book from the 19th century that has never been made into a good movie, and it has so many horror and supernatural elements in it, and you just keep wondering why nobody ever attempted it. Sort of like they just kept the social political issues in it and made it a boring movie, but they never dwelled on what it was really supposed to be. So that is a larger kind of budget, so we're trying to figure that out, how to get that done. And the third one is a weird little horror comedy that's set in abandoned diamond mine in South Africa, and with a monster down there. So
Oh, nice.
it's
I love
all kind of like I'm branching out in all kind of different directions, and let's just see what sticks.
I love weird little horror comedies. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, and it's really funny. Honestly, I'm not saying it because I'm working on it, but like every time I read it, I have to laugh and I have to imagine like these guys. It's kind of like in a vein of Tremors,
Oh, okay. I love Tremors.
that kind of feel.
That's
So
awesome.
we'll see what
Okay, so
what comes
let's
out
talk
of
about
it.
your personal taste. What are some of your favorite recent horror films?
Oh, I like Talk to Her.
Okay.
Um, I have a problem with recent horror films because I don't think any of them are really that original, or they don't really touch, they don't really touch me in the way they should.
I
Because
can understand.
it feels everything is so clean, and if you look at the actors, they all look out of a catalog.
Yep.
And if you look at movies from the 70s or 80s, those characters, they look way more interesting and real.
Yeah.
And that's my main problem, that a lot of, or most horror films these days are just 20 somethings model kind of influencer people stuck into whatever serial killer situations or something like that. So I'm not exactly sure which one I liked. I mean, Talk to Her was great. I liked Cuckoo
Did you?
up until the end. I thought the end was really bad because it felt like a TV shootout thing, but it's sort of like it had so many interesting elements, and I like that. Tough to say.
Yeah, I've been really, with the exception of Bark, I've been really let down with horror movies in the recent past. I have not really enjoyed a whole lot, and I think it started with Alien Romulus because I was so excited. It looked like it was going to
Yeah,
be very interesting. It looked like it was going to be brutal, but
yeah,
it just turned into a bunch of terrible fan service and forced situations and
yeah,
things that just didn't make sense, and it bothered the crap out of me.
yeah. I also watched that that Predator movie set with the whatever, with the Indians,
Oh,
with
Prey.
that girl.
Yeah.
I don't know which one that was. I also thought like kind of pointless.
I enjoyed that one. I thought it was really well made. The
Yeah,
only
it was
problem,
well made. It was interesting, but like there's nothing that sticks with you when the movie is over.
yeah,
Just think like, okay, well, okay, they put it 150 years back. But what does that tell me now?
right.
What do they want to tell me? What is I think the Predator character becomes so important, and it loses a lot of its magic that it had especially in the first one,
Yeah,
where it's just like this mysterious thing and you just can't kill it, and that's it. That's all you know about it. Now
right.
you have all these stories. He is his family, and he is his brothers, and here are they, whatever, and that sort of like takes away from the mystique there is. It would be the same if you had the Thing, and now
Yeah,
somebody explained to you in detail how the DNA works, and here's another thing, and we are testing it in our little thing here. It's just like, and then it's gone, just like this. Those movies are so great because they don't over explain the monster.
and that's so funny you say that because I've had the same conversation with my friend Mark, who is my co-host on the show.
Mhm.
Is I don't need to know the backstory of everything. I
No,
don't
but
need
it
a
feels
villain.
like these days everything needs to be explained to death,
Yeah,
and like, and here's a little psychoanalysis on the side, and oh yeah, his mother did this and that, and it feels like the most cliched thing, and
yeah,
it does not add anything to it.
yeah. I agree.
I
Like
mean,
I
look at
don't.
the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre. There's no explanations. It's
Yep.
just this completely bonkers family and this guy with a chainsaw who has this and then whatever, and you're as clueless as the characters in that movie,
Yep.
and
And
that
that's
what
what makes it great.
makes it so fucking scary.
Yep. I absolutely agree. That's just funny. I've not heard anybody else say that but me. So thank you for agreeing with me. I appreciate that.
And it comes back to, I mean, it comes even further back, like when everybody is talking about now 50 years of Jaws. why is Jaws so great? Yeah, because you don't see the monster that often and stuff. It's exactly that.
Yep.
I think,
And it's just a shark being a shark. He's not hunting anything, which is, where Jaws the Revenge and Jaws 3 fail, is they make it personal. They make it look like the shark's holding a grudge, and that's just stupid. It's just a shark being a shark.
Exactly. And especially since it's not the same shark, because he got killed in one, he got killed in part 2. So now who's that? Now the brother or the long lost cousin Ricky?
Yeah. There was one film that did it well, though, I will say, as far as giving an animal a purpose for taking revenge, and that was Orca.
Yeah.
That
I remember that. Yeah.
The opening scene where they cut open the whale and the baby falls on the deck. I still to this day will cry because it's gut-wrenching. So
I don't remember that scene. I remember I watched that movie also on VHS a couple of times, but I remember I really liked it.
Yeah, but that did it for me. That I understood why that whale was hunting people, and because whales are known to hold a grudge, and they're just jerks.
No, and they're intelligent, just like you could do the same thing with an elephant, most likely.
Just like, more than likely, and you could be, and it's been proven, right? Because there was an old circus trainer that got trampled by an elephant he used to beat. So it's absolutely true, but a shark has never shown that sort of behavior. So trying to force it is just, it's nonsensical in my opinion.
Absolutely.
So, so now tell us how you got involved with the Etreum Horror Festival.
We just submitted it to Adrian, and Adrian really responded to the movie. And he showed it there, and we arranged a Q&A session with Michael and myself. It was a bit complicated to figure out all the time zones and stuff. So it was, I think for me, it was like 4 a.m, but on that day I was going on vacation, so I had to leave the house by 5. So that was sort of like doable. And ever since then, he's still showing it in different places. So now they have this place in this festival also in Mendoza. And he also did a screening there, and he really championed the movie. He really likes it, and I'm really grateful for him to do that and to be so helpful and trying to put the word out, because it's just a little movie, and although we have a distributor, but we don't have a marketing budget of bloodlines and all of that. So it's a step-by-step thing to make people aware that this movie exists, and hopefully they rent it and they like it. And and I will do another one.
I have been I've not posted my review yet because I was waiting for this interview and the opportunity to talk to you before I did, but I will be posting that this weekend for sure.
Oh, great. Thank you.
So you're now also a juror for Etreum, right?
Yes.
How did that happen?
Adrian approached me and said, "Hey, you want to be a juror?" So I'm in the horror film section. So there's 5 movies. And
without spoiling anything, how are they doing so far?
One was okay. One was not so great. It was trying to do everything right, but by doing that, it felt a bit. It was you're trying to please everyone. You can't please anything, and it just like it. I don't know. It wasn't that great. And now I'm in the middle of a 3rd one that looks kind of promising.
Nice.
But I can't tell you which ones are which.
No. I wouldn't ask that because I don't want to jeopardize anything. But
are you also on the jury?
I am not. No, I had this large project at work, so I've backed off of content creation. So I haven't really been involved with social media too much. I'll be getting back into that now that things are slowing down a bit at work. The project has gone live. I have more free. I actually have some free time now, so I'll be getting back into all of that.
Okay, cool.
But at the moment, no, I sort of took a back seat from a lot of that stuff during this project, which has been running since December and just went live, 20 days ago?
Okay. So, wow. Congratulations.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's going to be, it was exciting, and it went much better than expected. We changed.
What is it? Can you talk about it?
So I work in IT for a hospital system, and we changed over our entire electronic medical record system.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I was in charge. I was in charge of all the hardware, and we had roughly 10,000 devices we had to scope, spec, and then around 6,000 we had to swap out to meet hardware specifications for this new system.
Yeah. Wow. that
So-
sounds brutal.
It was a little
Especially
bit.
for me, because I don't know anything about computers.
Yeah, it was a little bit, but I cannot be more grateful for the experience because I've gotten to learn and grow so much. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But anyway, I do want to say thank you, Mark, for hanging out with me today. This has been a great chat, and I definitely want you to come back as you work on more projects. I'd love to talk to you more about the
Sure.
stuff you can, for sure.
Yeah, anytime.
For anybody that's still watching, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm going to hit end stream, and then we'll have a minute to chat, okay?
Cool.
Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for watching.